What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm BLAIDEN Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Spiner and Theo Ash. And today, we are joined once again by your favorite Dolphins fan, Nico, aka EliteTakes. And I gotta ask you, it was your birthday a couple of days ago. How does it feel being 18, and how was your birthday?
Oh, my birthday was very good. I got a Dolphins license plate cover, so now
Nice.
everyone in town can know that there's a fan of the best team in the AFC when they're driving around. And yeah, had a nice dinner. It was a good day.
That's awesome, man.
I had a Hornets vinyl sticker on my car, and it poetically fell off recently.
Just like the Hornets.
Yeah,
The Hornets have never fallen off.
Were they ever up though? That's the question. They were never up.
They have never, ever,
arguably
ever
no,
fallen off.
they were never up. But
Yeah, but Matt
2 years
won.
ago, I would have said differently.
Yeah, at one point, Matt thought they were going to get 50 wins. So,
At one point, they could have.
At one point they could have.
well, today, obviously, we have Nico, and we're going to be talking about the AFC East. We've been going through our division predictions. So today, it's going to be no different. We're going to go Jets, Patriots, Dolphins, Bills, and we're just going to run right through these teams. Let's start with the New York Jets. They added Aaron Rodgers. They finished last in this division last year, but considering their quarterback play, they honestly didn't do a half bad of a job. How do we think they fare this year with Rodgers? The expectations have to be sky high. Theo, as a Packers fan, you've seen Rodgers play for a long time. Do you think the expectations are reasonable?
Well, what are the expectations? Let me pull the room and then I'll talk. What do you guys think of the Jets? Maybe I'll start with Nico or Matt, the guest, or whatever. But what are your breakdowns of the Jets before I go?
That's fair.
Okay, I think you're dodging the question, but it's all
I
good.
am. That's absolutely what I'm doing.
I mean, I think the expectation after the moves you made is win the division, right? I mean, that should be the goal. I'm not saying that they necessarily will. I think somewhat obviously, I think that's where you are, Theo. You're going to pick them to win the division. You're obviously not that high on Buffalo, but I think it's pretty simple logic. You know, you've really killed a couple of drafts here. You're in a very good position with a lot of young talent, so you leverage that, and you have the ability to go trade some picks and spend some money on a real quarterback who's the type of guy who you could win a Super Bowl with. And if you go, about 500 last year with the worst quarterback play in the league, and you get a guy who's only a year removed from being MVP, and you spend all this money and you trade all these picks to get him, I don't see how the expectation couldn't be that you're going to win the division. I mean, they're right up there as Super Bowl contenders now.
Yes, that should be the expectation. And if it's not win the division, it should at least be make the playoffs. At this point, I don't think any Jets fans would be too upset if they snuck in.
If they go 12-5 and it's whatever.
Yeah. I'd say 11, 12 wins. Anything below that would have to be a disappointment, really. I mean, I hate determining team success in terms of just wins and losses, but I'd say you probably want the offense to be top 10. You probably want the defense to be top 3-ish. I'd say those are pretty fair expectations.
And the question, I guess, then just becomes, do you think they'll hit those expectations? Are any of us low on New York or lower than maybe that?
I'm trying to think,
or
what are their,
that they'll hit it?
do they have a glaring weakness? That's what I'm trying to think of.
I kind of think they don't. And if I'm going to get into my spiel about how good they are, I really think that those are very achievable numbers to hit. And if you can have a top 10 offense and a top 5 defense, and even top 3, which I think is on the table, you're looking at a pretty, just a straight up Super Bowl contender, right?
Yeah.
And I think they can easily be a top 10 offense because do you guys know where the Packers ranked in offense last year? I checked this morning and it's top 10. It's 11th.
Oh, wow.
It's 11th in DVOA. I think it was 9th in yards per drive and 13th in points per drive. And last year was kind of a disaster season for the Packers offense and felt really disappointing. And Watson was hurt the whole first half of the season. And, they were shuffling the offensive line all around and David Bakhtiari didn't come back until real late. Then he got hurt again. And, it was just kind of all disjointed. And yet still, they finished as a very borderline, like truly borderline top 10 offense. So it's like you give them Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and just that defense. It's like, man, I mean, even a banged up Rodgers last year was putting forward some decent
average numbers.
Some good numbers. And especially down the stretch when his thumb maybe started to recover a little bit and had a little bit more chemistry with the wide receivers late in the year. So I think that this team is the best in the division. I think they've got the best defense. I think they had the best defense last year. And as far as the offense goes, I mean, if the Packers could be borderline top 10 last year and he won MVP the 2 years before with Hackett, I think this offense should look pretty similar. I mean, he brought in all of his dudes, so like, there's no reason why not.
He's got all his friends on the team.
He does, so he should be in a good mood. But maybe that's bad.
Shouldn't quit.
Want Rodgers.
No.
That's my only concern. Is like they're giving Rodgers what he wants too much, and it's like, could he be too happy? Because what you really want from Rodgers is him to be a little bit mad. And maybe that's why the Packers always
Yes, I would agree with that.
I think, like, okay, I agree. It's a pretty overall well-built team. Defense is great. You're adding Rodgers. You've got some weapons, so on and so on. If you're looking for the part of this team that could fall apart, though, it probably circles back to Rodgers, right? He is 39 years old, turning 40. And while he is definitely, still pretty good at the moment, he's coming off a little bit more of a down year where he was banged up. And while it's reasonable to expect that he could bounce back at any time, age could catch up to him and you're back to square one,
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd also say, like, if anything were to go really wrong, it's the fact that their offensive coaching staff has a few guys in there that a lot of people kind of think are semi-unserious, like Nathaniel Hackett and Todd Downing. They've had their moments for sure, but I wouldn't say that's like a super inspiring group of guys to hold Rodgers in check and put together brilliant game plans week in and week out offensively.
Yeah, but Hackett can just run what he ran.
That's true. But I mean, it was
LaFleur was kind of the brain trust there. Yeah, LaFleur was kind of the one who was coming up with all the ideas, from what I've heard, and I'm just going to directly attribute this to Ollie Connolly with the Read Optional and listening to his podcast. Like, he has mentioned that LaFleur was kind of the ideas guy, and Hackett was kind of the make LaFleur's ideas get to the football field guy. So, is Hackett someone who can be the main character of an offensive room or an offensive coaching staff? Because obviously Saleh is the head coach, but he's working with the defense more than anything else. So Hackett's a bit of an unknown. But even watching Hackett last year in Denver, I honestly thought, like, if Rodgers was there instead of Russ, it would have worked way better. Like, guys were open. It's just like Russ doesn't want to throw it to the open guy all the time. Like, I just don't know what Russ was doing last year. He was really bad. So, like, I really do think, like, Hackett is a little bit of a weird person to be, like, and a personality to be the head coach. And I think, like, a lot of the articles I read before the season just kind of made it seem like the players are like, well, who knows? But I do think his personality meshes really well with Rodgers. I think that's a partnership that works real well. And I think if you're getting results, it doesn't really matter what your personality is. Like, people will respect you if you are doing a good job. And if Hackett and Rodgers can, like, do a good job, and I think that they can still, because they have such a good track record of working together in the past. And I just think it's going to be a really good team. And I think they're going to be first in this division. I think there might not be a team with more pressure. I think if this doesn't work, Joe Douglas is, I mean, it's kind of a miracle he survived the Zach Wilson mistake. He had to crush everything else. Yeah. But that's a big ding on his record, and Saleh hasn't done anything yet, really. And Rodgers, he doesn't have many more chances to win a Super Bowl. So I think there's a ton of pressure, and maybe they just crack under that pressure. But, like, with the personalities that they've got, But I think from a on paper standpoint, I like this team more than any of the other teams in the division.
They play a very tough schedule.
They do.
They play the NFC East. They play the AFC West. I mean, that's giving you Eagles, Chiefs, Giants.
But that's every other team in this division too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And that's how it all is. I mean, it's a lot of iron sharpened iron here. Because I think you could make an argument for probably 3 different teams winning this division. And while I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you about anything you've said about the Jets, it's still tough to put them at 1.
I will say, I think we're going to have this team pretty much figured out within the first month because they get some really good tests against some really good offenses. They have Buffalo, Dallas, and Kansas City in the first month. And
that's
brutal. I mean, they have the Patriots game in between.
The Patriots aren't a bad team.
brutal.
I like.
Yeah, I mean,
well, offensively, it's not as much.
Yeah, yeah, that's the Patriots' big weakness. But we know the defense will be good. You know.
Yeah. And I really do. Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Nico. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say I really think this defense. I was listening to your top 10 defenses podcast, and I really do think they are probably my pick for the best defense in football. I just feel like last year, how successful they were in terms of EPA per play and the fact that they didn't rely on turnovers at all. I feel like that's a pretty predictable model to continue into this year. And they didn't really lose anyone. They just added more depth on the defensive line. And I think the Sauce DJ Reed duo is incredible. Like, I think it's the indisputable number 1 duo in the league right now.
I was trying to think of anybody who is better. And when I came up with this, maybe like Lattimore and maybe Alontae Taylor. I like that group potentially for next year. But
Diggs and Gilmore, but like no one's
Diggs
really that close.
Mm-hmm. Diggs and Gilmore's good.
Who else is there? There's
nobody.
Woolen and Witherspoon has a shot
at it.
That's going to be
pretty good.
That's
going to be really good.
Yeah, that is going to be really nasty. But they might put Witherspoon in the slot, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they'll probably play Witherspoon in the slot a decent amount, but everybody's inside out. You know, there'll be motions that bring guys in and out. Like, that's kind of the appeal with Witherspoon is he can play both spots, and he'll be playing both spots. I think Jair and either Douglas or Stokes has a shot at it, but it's probably not quite as good.
But we're naming all these guys.
2021,
maybe
the Packers had the best trio, I think. So I don't want to totally write them off, really considering how good they were 2 years ago.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I just wanted to name some names, really, because I find that fun.
Yeah. I think the other thing that maybe all of us are expecting is a big step from Garrett Wilson. We're very high on him here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Partially for Ohio State reasons, but also partially because he has a potential to be tier 1 absolute crazy weapon. And I'd argue he already looked like that in year 1. He can do it all, go high point the ball, and he's great after the catch, and he can, run himself open pretty easily. It's just about him getting enough good targets, which hopefully he'll be able to get more of with Rodgers.
He should be able to. And Rodgers has such a good track record of getting the most out of wide receivers. I mean, he's for a team that's never drafted them very high, he's certainly played with some good ones. And I don't think that anyone can argue that he hasn't gotten the most out of every single receiving core that he's played with, whether that be second round pick Jordy Nelson. When Devontae Adams entered the league, he was one of the worst receivers and then turned into one of the best because of, Rodgers played no small part in that. And even James Jones has led the league in touchdowns, and Randall Cobb was a second round pick who had a great career. So I think playing with Rodgers and playing with any great quarterback really is just going to inflate your stats to a pretty high degree. And Garrett Wilson had good stats playing with absolutely awful quarterbacks. And I just don't see how it's any way it doesn't get better. You get more accurate targets. The timing is better, which means better yak opportunities if you hit him right when the breaks. It's it's going to be good. And I think even the other wide receivers, Lazard and maybe Ruckert does something this year, and Brees Hall out of the backfield. Like, I like Ruckert too. And like, I just think that even last year with Romeo Dobbs and like Mercedes Lewis and Robert Tonyan, I would still are in, Watson towards the end of the year. I would still argue that like Rodgers got kind of the most out of them too. Like if you were to give like by the end with Watson, I mean, he scored 9 touchdowns in like 5 weeks, so I think Rodgers still has that ability to elevate an offense. And the defense looks fantastic. I agree with everything you said, Nico, that all the indicators would say like you don't really have to worry about a major swing. So, man, I really am high on the Jets this year. I think that it would have to be something behind the scenes and almost personality wise, or maybe age catches up with Rodgers. But he had a pretty strong arm last year, so I don't think like that part's going to be gone. Yeah, so I don't know what it would have to look like for it to be bad.
I've been trying to think, is like with the last episode, we talked a lot about which teams have the fewest question marks with the NFC South, and I think that can kind of be applied here. The Jets just have,
I agree.
They just have no.
There's just not. It's like
we're grasping at straws. It's like, well, maybe Rodgers falls off. Maybe he turns 40 and becomes bad. But like we said that we were like, how long did we do that with Brady? And we're maybe
that's what I think. It's like he's starting to get into sort of like Brady longevity, where it's like this dude is turning 40. He's won 2 of the last 3 MVPs. It's like maybe the thought process at this point is just like, when you're bad, I'll call you bad, but I'm not going to guess for it. Outside of that, maybe injuries could get them, but I don't know if that's not true for any other team, and it's not particularly true for them. I think their receiver depth is not that great. Yeah. Lazard and Hardman are okay. But, Rodgers was doing pretty decently. Like if Wilson were to go down, that would be a disaster. And that would almost feel like it's back to where Rodgers was with the Packers. But
the defense would also
be that wasn't even that bad of a spot, really. It really wasn't. It was again a decent offense. It was frustrating, but
you would go from being like a truly top 10 offense to like a fringe top 10 offense, and then your defense is still good, and you're probably still a playoff team, though maybe not quite the Super Bowl contender that you would have been otherwise. So I agree with you, Theo. I think this Jets team probably wins the division. Though I don't know.
My only question is, what do you guys think about the offensive line? Because it might be the worst one he's had in a while.
I think
it's like up there last year with the Packers, but
he's someone who's gotten the ball out faster and faster as time has gone on, and I think that what he brings to the table in terms of like
pocket
just
movement,
checks and like pre-snap stuff, like getting out of running plays that aren't going to work, or getting out of passing plays that aren't going to work, or setting the protection. And again, he's got Hackett, so all of that is going to be very familiar with him. And it's not like week one, he's trying a system that he's never tried before. He should be pretty intimately familiar with the receivers, the offensive coordinator, everything. And I assume that he's going to have a much better grasp on it than Zach Wilson or Mike White did. Well, maybe Mike White and Flacco. Those guys are smart dudes. Wilson, I don't know. So I think that the line is going to look a little bit better than it has maybe in years past, just because Rodgers is the type of quarterback who's going to elevate the offensive line to some degree.
He will.
I don't know if it's going to be quite something that like, hand the ball off. It's going to be 5-6 yards every time, because they're just putting that kind of dent in the defensive line. Yeah. But I think it's going to be, not too much better or worse than where the Packers have been the last couple of years. Well, Bakhtiari is elite, but he's been really injured and banged up these last 2 years. So I don't think it'll be too much different than Green Bay's.
I mean, you've kind of got a similar problem though with the tackles for the Jets. I mean, Becton has missed a bunch of time, and Brown on the other side. I mean, how old is he?
He's got to be really old. It would be really nice if Max Mitchell could come back and like continue to get better. He was someone I liked watching at Louisiana Lafayette, and I think that's the college he went to.
Yes, I think so.
And then he came in last year, was looking decent, and then he tore his ACL. So it's like, that's a pretty tough thing to be like, just throw him in at right tackle. But that's another option that like could be okay.
There's upside with the offensive line. I don't think it's great, but
There
you can see how it works out. And there's a lot of offensive lines where you're like, no matter what, man, this isn't gonna be good. I don't think you can say that about the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, the Bengals went to the Super
Johnson
Bowl
Jr. so much that I keep thinking Paris Johnson Jr. is on this team, and he's not.
I know, I mocked it.
Yeah,
I thought it was
the Bengals went to the Super Bowl with a bad
there.
offensive line.
Yeah.
The trying to think who the Bills. I feel like their offensive line isn't
The Bills
super
are pretty
crazy
much,
either.
They're
They're
good
kind of in the same boat there. So, but Allen's also a tank, so there's a little bit of a difference in physicality there. But I think if he's getting the ball out quick, it'll be okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at the offensive line room, and I'm seeing Elijah Vera Tucker and Billy Turner and Laken Tomlinson and Tippmann and McGovern and Dwayne Brown and Becton and Mitchell, and it's like there's enough talent there that
nice
like
depth.
5 of those dudes, like 5. You just need 5 starters out of that group, and it's like I think there's enough okay players to get that done. So I like the team overall. I think that they could be a sneaky team to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, although. If it didn't happen with Rodgers and some of those Packers teams, I'd be pretty pissed if it happened with this Jets team. But the defense is really good, and it's better than any.
The defense is
better.
It's unbelievable, man.
And the last time he had an unbelievable defense was truly 2010.
They won the Super Bowl.
Which is when they won the Super Bowl with Matthews and Woodson and Raji and whatnot.
Yeah,
Nick Collins.
Good old Charles.
I'll put him at 1.
There
I'll
you
put him
go.
at 1. Yeah.
Now I've got to do something else to try to be different. Fuck you.
Don't worry. We'll be different here in a minute.
Yeah, when we get to
Sounds
Buffalo, Theo we're doing the Patriots next, and Theo probably has them at 3, doesn't he?
No, I think I've got them at 4, unfortunately.
Okay,
I wish I could put them in a different division. I mean, I don't know, man.
How are we feeling
What's
about
there
the
to
Big
say
Mac?
about the
Let's
Patriots?
how are we feeling about the Big Mac? All right, let's
No
start there.
Hopkins.
You just watched him, Nico.
No
so
Hopkins.
Let's start with you.
Yeah,
No
I did actually, because I'm putting together my quarterback rankings, and I wanted to make sure I had a good grasp on like the Mac Joneses and Kenny Pickett's and Brock Purdy's of the world.
Yeah.
So I was watching Jones, and I still find myself sort of impressed by how much of a rhythm he can get into in the short passing game. Like he is so patient when it comes to taking deep shots. And it just builds some nice down-to-down consistency. But my problem with the Patriots last year is they don't really have guys to stretch the field. Like everything's just super congested looks with, I like Myers, but he's not really that type of guy that opens up the offense. And then you've got Aguilar and you got Devontae Parker, and none of them can really separate that much unless it's underneath.
Did you see that Devontae Parker play against the Browns? He went up against
I did see that one. He had a few he had some nice moments. I will say
He just got a big contract. So
there's some more upside than I think I probably expected coming into watching the Patriots again with him and the way that he can have some really big games every now and then. I just don't know if I trust him to stay healthy though. I don't know. It's just, I was really hoping that they could add a sort of dynamic receiver like Zay Flowers. That was my dream. That was my dream fit for them in the draft. They didn't add that. They did add Juju, who had some nice yards after catch, but there's just no serious speed outside of Tyquan Thornton in this receiver room. And with Mac, I would like to see the field a little more spread out, because it's just like when his accuracy isn't completely on the numbers of the jersey, things can get really sloppy with the turnovers. And that's what led him to have like a pretty bad touchdown interception ratio last year.
I mean, this is a team with a losing record last year, and I just don't know if they did quite enough for me to get really excited about them this offseason. That's sort of where I stand. And I think there's some stuff, like there's some upside. Juju's cool. Gesicki, I think, could possibly be used a little bit more by the Patriots, and that could be a little bit more of a weapon. But ultimately, it feels like a whole lot of running it back Because we talked for a couple years ago. Wow, okay, here's all the big Patriots moves. Here, everything they're going to do. They're going to go spin, 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 and they did that. And this is the team that they made, and now they're kind of with that team.
Yeah.
They
really need to
be
blow
Bill
it up.
O'Brien. Bill O'Brien is their only hope with his year under Saban, or 2 years. I can't remember exactly how long he's there. But, being at Bama, that probably gave you some insight into like what Mac Jones likes to do. So I think that that's got to be the big addition, is like the same pieces just running a lot closer to how they ran in 2021 than 2022 with O'Brien. Right. Because it wasn't that bad in 2021. I mean, it's not like they had a Stephon Diggs out there or anything running around.
Very similar personnel, yeah.
Right.
And he just looked so much more comfortable, especially in the middle of the field in 2021.
Belichick decided, I don't know if dementia is setting in or what, but he just decided to hire Matt Patricia to run the offense. And like, it was clear Matt hated it. And it was a disaster from the very beginning. And it's like, what? This was just such a misstep. They got away from the power running games.
Left his playbook in his truck like Kenny Pickett did.
That's right. Right. So it's like, I guess the vision is the defense is elite and the offense gets back to like 2021 levels. And then you're dealing with a wild card.
More of like a 10-minute.
The upside is there, but I think ultimately, like the two most important positions, the nerds are right about this, are quarterback and receiver. And New England is just not great at those two positions.
Yeah. Right. It's uphill sledding.
And they do everything else really well. And if they are better coordinated offensively this year, we'll see how far you can go with that being the team.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy. They have a good offensive line. They have Ramondre, who's a good running back. they get a lot of sacks. Their corners are always good.
They finally have a number one.
I'm looking at their running back.
Yeah, they got
Pierre Strong,
Gonzalez, like
Kevin Harris, Ty Montgomery.
I think you might be right about Dalvin, dude. I'm looking at that depth chart. Yeah, although Pierre Strong shut out, but
he's totally going to New England. I can almost guarantee that they would have drafted Bijan if he was there. Like,
oh yeah, I remember hearing those theories.
I think there was a lot of smoke behind that. I think that they really wanted Bijan, and I think they wanted to run 2 running back sets and do some weird shit. And I think that Dalvin Cook is enough of a receiving threat and enough of like footwork. Like there's if you really squint, maybe you could see like a comparison.
If you really squint.
It's like, and I think that the running back depth behind Ramondre is looking a little dicey, although I know that there's a pretty strong hive out there. I think that is all looking very good if you're a Ramondre hive person or a strong hive person, but I think that Dalvin Cook is going to sign there and everyone's going to be mad in the fantasy world because it's like, I totally wanted, him to be the bell cow. So I think I have no insider information on this, but I call it a gut feeling is that the Patriots end up signing.
Their defense is going to be so nasty, man.
It is.
Gonzalez is like as build right away. Their secondary is brutal, dude.
I'm so mad at Jack Jones for bringing that gun into the airport. Why can't I have an ASU player like... I want to push agendas like Matt. Okay, Matt has such a fun time. Like everyone he likes in college is like, oh, they're going to be amazing, and then they are. And then I watch Jack Jones at ASU, and I'm like, that guy rules, and he gets picked, and he's awesome. And I'm like, this is how Matt gets to feel all the time, and then he just completely derails it.
But
has he actually like big time though? He was sick last year.
Yeah. He was really good.
Yeah.
Yes, he was. Dude, I'm not kidding. Jack Jones at ASU was awesome. I could not. I was sitting in the stands and just watching him the whole game because he was that good.
This is a good thought right here.
Yeah,
how many Patriots players have
three? There are 3.
How many Patriots players have the name Jones?
Jack, Mac. 4. There's got to be one more.
There's Marcus
Jonathan.
Jones.
There's Marcus.
They have 3.
There is Jonathan.
They have 3 Jones quarterbacks.
It's the all
Oh
Jones
my gosh.
defensive back group.
They got 4 Joneses. This is Jones, 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 and Jones.
Marcus Jones might be their guy to be the explosive separator.
Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Wide receiver screens, jet sweeps. Give him like the Jamal Agnew role and just see what happens.
They do. And that's, I think, going to be a good part of their offense because Marcus Jones really is that special with the ball in his hands. You just can't have him running like real routes. So, because he's a corner, obviously.
He's a special talent.
But I don't know. That's another thing where it's like, if you could, like, maybe that's a couple big plays over the course of the season. And there are things that they can do. Right. They can have a good running game. Like, again, 2021 is the blueprint. It's just like, can you get back to that? And then last year, you got rid of J.C. Jackson, went with a bunch of unknowns in the secondary, and Belichick still got him right. So if those two things can happen, which isn't like the most far-fetched thing in the world, I mean, yeah, they could be a good team. And I think in a different division, I think they could make real noise.
It's a real tough draw.
It's just in this one. It's like you're dealing with McDaniels and Tua and Tyreek and Josh Allen and Garrett Wilson and Rodgers. And it's just like, I just don't know if they have the firepower to quite match. And I think that they're kind of a low ceiling team compared to all the others in their division. And, they probably have the lowest floor as well, honestly. So it's like I just don't know where you could put them outside of 4 in this division.
Like, I think they're still going to be a good team. Like this is an 8 or 9 win team in this division, I think. But it's just like
sure.
It's just, man, you're winning 8 games. You're like everyone else is winning 10 plus, and so. It's just not going to be
maybe if
enough.
you were a serious Rodgers or Tua or Allen hater, you could put the Patriots at 3. It's just,
and say Belichick gets 2 of those.
Right. And just like, but I maybe you couldn't put them higher than like 3rd, 2nd or 1st in this division. Just seems like so much would have to go wrong.
I don't see that ceiling at all.
For all the other quarterbacks in the division.
Right.
Yeah.
Belichick's just in his bag.
He'd have to be. He would have to be cooking up something
He's playing quarterback
special,
himself
like
now.
3 or 4 pick sixes over the course of the season.
Right.
You need Mac Jones to be like Deshaun Watson in Houston, breaking all the sacks.
Yeah. He needs to be.
Just imagine that.
We need 10 touchdowns from Marcus Jones. That's where the ceiling of the offense comes, whether that be pick sixes or big plays on screens or kick returns.
This is Tyquan.
Like, I need
pump returns.
Erasure.
I do like Tyquan Thornton.
He's a baller. If he didn't play well in the Big 12 championship game in 2021, Cincinnati would have not made the playoffs.
Okay, so this is somehow Cincinnati's stamp.
Dude, I thought it was good when I was just watching him very casually. I was surprised he went in the 2nd round, but if he could turn it on a little bit and be kind of a weapon, like
he's like 51, I think. 51.
Yeah, he went really high on him, and
I liked him.
I remember people were freaking out.
I liked him a decent amount
over Nakobe Dean. I remember that was the huge Twitter going crazy that night.
Yeah,
right.
But it worked.
Nakobe,
I remember he was kind of a draft nerd. He was kind of a draft nerd favorite because he's just so small. Like, he's built like me, and he can block, and he just flies, and he runs decent routes. So like everyone kind of liked him. But then when he went in the 2nd round, people were like, "Oh, I didn't realize. I don't know if I like him that much." But there is something there with him as a deep threat, and maybe he can be the one that's needed to be consistently on offense on the receiving end of big plays, because Jones can be accurate down the field. He is a good deep ball thrower despite the arm strength. So I just really wish. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I really wish they had been able to make a splash addition with some sort of offensive playmaker this offseason.
Yeah,
like Dalvin, I think will move me a lot more than it would Theo. But they just didn't get their Hopkins. They didn't get their Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah.
They didn't quite do it.
Yeah, they would have needed, and there weren't. Who were the first rounders in the draft? Like, there wasn't really the.
I can't blame them though because
year.
they got an A+ pick, but
yeah, Gonzalez was a nice pick, and I think that he's gonna step in and be pretty good right away with like a guy who can clearly coach corners. After all these years,
God, how many good? Now you might have like the best track record of corners ever. It's crazy.
But that's the thing, though. Like, would you rather have Jackson Smith and Jigba and just run it back in the secondary? Like that's my only thing.
Maybe
looking back, like I love the pick, but now that I'm really thinking about it, I think they might have been better off going a different direction.
I don't know because
I don't know.
JSN's not really the big play threat. It seems like JSN, they should be able to like,
not just him specifically, but like anyone in that receiver run that went right after.
Like a Quentin, I know they liked
not Johnston. Like I would not expect an immediate impact though. There,
but that's the thing is like who else was there?
I'm nitpicking.
Johnston was kind of your one.
Yeah.
It was kind of the guy who was there in the first round to be that explosive threat, and I think they really like Johnston. He's totally their type of receiver, but I don't like him more than Christian Gonzalez. And at 17, I'd rather have Gonzalez. So I just don't think the cards quite fell for them to get one. Because, I mean, the number one highest paid receiver in free agency was Hopkins, I suppose. But even he's not, at this age, is probably not going to be like the world's most dynamic receiver.
Yeah.
More than he just is like a competent
They didn't have a ton of options.
And then outside of that, it was like Lazard and Odell Beckham. Those were the two highest paid guys from free agency. Juju, who they got.
Those wouldn't really move me, but yeah. Juju's nice because he fits well with Mac, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think so too. And
Juju's probably a little underrated right now.
He's solid. He's real solid. The Chiefs like don't need wide receivers is I think what they realized, and they were like, well, if we don't need wide receivers, we can, I guess, just get rid of Juju.
Travis Kelce.
But that doesn't mean that Juju didn't work out for them last year. I just think that they realized.
Yeah, Juju was good for them.
They're like, we can just do whatever at receiver.
They really can, though.
They can. Well, they totally can.
If we want to move on to Nico's team here, your Miami Dolphins. I see he's got his Dolphins shirt on. Theo, are you wearing a Packers hoodie?
I am wearing my Packers.
And then
hoodie.
We've got Matt over here wearing the Murphy's Pub instead of Panthers or
the Panthers merch.
Theo sort of owns me after the Christmas Day game.
The Christmas Day game was so awesome. I'm sorry. I always feel
it was
bad.
So uncomfortable.
I hate that they play on Christmas because it's just so sad that a football team can ruin anyone's Christmas. I think that should be illegal.
I think you ruined my Christmas 2 years ago, didn't you, Theo?
2 years in a row. I know. I've got 2 years ago was the Baker disaster.
The Packers, the Christmas Day killers.
They're awesome, man, because it's like it's been good for my agendas too. I've had great Christmases to have Baker and Tua through for like 4 picks.
I remember the I'm Santa now meme.
Don't the Panthers and the Packers play this year on Christmas?
That one was awesome because I posted that the day before the game happened, and then Baker threw even more picks than
you always time those
projected.
Tweets so well. It's like the Eli Apple Cooper Cup thing.
That one was crazy, but the Packers are a juggernaut on Christmas. I will say the Christmas Packers you do not want to play them. But anyway, I'm sorry that they ruined Christmas, and I think they should play the day.
We never quite recovered,
so everyone can have a good holiday. And it sucks that Tua got hurt in that game. And
it's been all downhill.
I was watching the Skylar Thompson playoff game this morning, and I was like, why?
The Skylar Thompson interception to Kyrie Lum still replays in my head. 3rd down and long at like our own 10, dude. Oh my gosh.
Awful. Yeah, I don't know what he was doing. That sucked that we had to watch that instead of an actual like.
It was fun though. Like that game didn't really devastate me because I just had no hope, even like through a quarter of that game, and I was just like, oh my gosh, is this gonna be the biggest God-given win of my life? And I was just like, oh well.
No, it wasn't.
So speaking of that game, so they fired Boyer after his blitz happy ways allowed a bunch of big plays in that one, and also a lot of good plays for the Dolphins. It was kind of an up and down performance from Boyer's group, and they hired Fangio and they got Ramsey and everything. So I think it's fair to call them off-season winners, and because of that, where do you have them? What are your expectations as a fan, Nico?
I'm trying to hold myself back, but like I really. Well,
let's talk about that. What? So hold yourself back. What could go wrong? Like, what could possibly go wrong? How have you?
This is a good exercise.
Yes.
Xavier Howard has another bad year. Jalen. Yeah. I'm not really gonna predict a terrible scenario for Ramsey, but let's say like Cam Smith isn't really ready. Kader Kohu takes a step back in the secondary. Like, the secondary has a ton of upside, but I don't think they have.
It proves to be overrated. Floor. Yeah, like maybe that happens.
And then like offensively, Tua in the they can't protect Tua. That's like the big concern offensively, is not just like from an injury standpoint, but from the fact that we have some very fraudulent areas on the offensive line. Like Austin Jackson, serious snaps again. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
Liam Eichenberg getting in there. I don't know how I feel about that. So,
yeah.
And then like not being able to run the ball super efficiently. I just don't know how much better our run game is going to be. And you kind of need that to set up the RPOs. So those will be my sort of tempered thoughts, but I guess we'll get into why I'm optimistic later.
McDaniels was kind of under some heat last year towards the end, was he not?
He was.
Because they ran into the 49ers, and the 49ers were kind of being physical and pressing these guys at the line and disrupting the timing a little bit. And then that was kind of a formula that you saw again with the Chargers, and Brandon Staley was able to do it. And then the Packers... Well, the Packers were not.
It was working well actually before Tua got concussed.
Yeah, so
we might have gotten bailed out though by that one Waddle yards after catch play. I don't know.
That's right. That was a crazy run by Waddle.
No. I will say this though: we balled out against the Bills after those Niners and Chargers games, so that's encouraging. Offensively.
Right. It wasn't like they put up like nothing offensively ever after that happened.
It wasn't like the league figured out the Dolphins.
Yeah, there's a world where maybe that formula like slows it down from like its really crazy pace at the beginning of the year, and like maybe the defense proves to be a little bit overrated after the free agent additions. But I think it's more likely that everything is fine, and we can talk about what that looks like.
Yeah, I do think the Tua injury concern is real. Like one really bad hit could be it.
It's more about like the optics of it, really, because it's just because a concussion I don't think is something that you're really prone to. Maybe I'm speaking on things I'm not educated
I don't think you
on,
are.
But
no,
I just don't think that. I think it comes down more to like luck and like when your head hits the ground. Like I think it's something that can be avoided, although there are players who struggled with it their entire careers, Kuechly being one, and maybe it's not, I don't know. It's kind of tough to say, but it's like if he got one, it would really be depressing. That's for sure.
Yeah, it would just be, it would be a really scary scenario.
But that's not, I want to avoid kind of that.
I will say this though, like they were saying that he was taking these, was it jujitsu? I don't know. He went through some really intense off-season drills of like how to like brace yourself for hits. I don't know. I might that might not make a huge impact. And he put on some muscle. He
does look bigger. He does look bigger.
Put on some Flex Seal tape around himself.
There does have to be things you can do where it's like, and he doesn't create anything anyway, like out of structure. So it's like, if you're going to go down, like, try to just like give it up. That's
take some sacks every now and then.
Maybe there is some
don't
ways
have to play
make
every 24/7.
Right. When you can be cautious. Like, I just don't know what to do about the the Tua and the head injury and the retirement possibility. Like, I don't know. I just don't know what to expect from that. So I think that Tua is going to be good. Like, I think that he's a good fit for this offense. Like, he manipulates people with his eyes. He moves defenders, and then guys get open, and he's able to hit it. He's very accurate like that. And I think like that's the type of quarterback that this offense needs. I think that it should work again. I don't think it was a flash in the pan because he was like the top 5 overall pick. And like, that's kind of what he was billed as being good at coming out of school. I do think that he has serious limitations, but if the roster around him is good enough, it should be fine. Like it was last year before he really got rocked by the concussions. And I think history can repeat itself in that way as long as he stays healthy. And I'm going to project that. I think I should project like a healthy Tua.
It just feels weird to assume. It feels like you're really going out on a limb there. And one thing I will say is that Tua might not elevate his receivers, but I do think he elevates the offensive line. I think like last year, those numbers and the amount of sacks he took could have been a lot worse if he wasn't so decisive and aware in the pocket. So I think you got something there. But like if Armstead goes down, like it's over. It's so over. Like you're not dodging the sacks at that point.
I think that you guys are entirely too optimistic about Tua and the injury stuff. I hate to say, he has not played a full season in forever. He got hurt his last year at Alabama, and he's been hurt every single year since then. Not even looking at concussions.
Forgot about the hip.
And they were not good with the backups in. I think that is like absolutely my number one concern about Miami is that Tua is just like it's very hard to get through the full season. He's missed real time every year. Yeah. And that goes to the hip stuff. That goes to shoulder stuff his rookie year. He was just getting sat and that stuff. And then obviously the concussions too, which he had so many last year that, I mean, yeah, you're like one away from not just him going out, it being like, okay, do you ever want to go back? I mean, that's a question right now. So I like Miami. I like a lot of their stuff, but a whole side of their offensive line is like a total disaster. If Armstead goes down, he's, how old is he? 34?
Armstead is 30. Let's see.
I mean, he's getting up there,
I think he's 33.
Yeah, so, I mean...
31. He's not that old.
He's way older. Still.
I thought he was 33.
I think your whole offensive line can get into like worst in the league territory if you have one injury and you have a quarterback who you need to protect. Fair. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I just to me, it's not fun to be like negative about that or be like that could go really bad, but that could go really bad.
I totally forgot about that.
And it has gone really bad each of the last several years. It really has. And that's kind of the high wire act that they're balancing, where it's like the potential is just so great. And we've seen them just shred some really good defenses. And even against the 49ers, they missed plenty of opportunities. There were drops, there were throws that were there that Tua can make and didn't make, but like maybe in the future he could hit those. So it's like they honestly weren't too crazy far from beating that defense, a really good defense. Like they had some answers there. So it's a true high wire act. It's like it's all hanging by a string.
It's all,
but if
you from a franchise standpoint too, it's just everything has been set up. I really think like Chris Greer has had 2023 circled on his calendar for a while, just with the way he drafted, and now you've got all these exciting rookies not rookies, but prospects going into year 3. Phillips, Holland, Waddle, like it all kind of aligned for this to be the big year. And I think he had to double down with like the Chubb trade and the Ramsey trade. So it really is all hanging in the balance.
It is. And they tampered and like they got a pick taken away and their like team is like under investigation, or maybe not under investigation. It was under investigation. I don't know. They've gone through like so much hardship to get to this point, and they're in a spot to contend, but it's like, it just has not gone right quite before. It's like they seem to always be this this close and like, oh, they're going to sign Brady. And then, you know, Flores leaks that they tried. And then, you know, Flores gets fired. And then, you know, there's all the Tua disaster stuff. And it's like Tyreek, it's like, dude, don't punch anybody on a boat, you know, like,
oh
we
my
need
gosh.
you here. Like, it's just like every week there's kind of like a big scare on this high wire act that could be.
Even like
you know,
the backups were getting injured last year.
Right.
Like Teddy Bridgewater got concussed, and then I don't know. You are right. There is like a lot of
just not a
bad
normal
luck on our
culture.
side.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the culture at the top that like the owner is just doing things that are unsustainable and like hasn't hit them well or whatever, as well as other teams. So they just don't have the right people in the building. But it feels like a different organization with this talent could maybe be a little bit more bet on, or like a little bit more comfortable if you're betting on it. But
I see what you mean.
I don't know.
But it does help to have McDaniel now at the helm. Like, he has brought a much more smooth locker room culture, I think.
I think so too. I think, you know, he's kind of an oddball, but he's, you know, if you're good, it's like with Hackett, it doesn't really matter what your personality is. If you say something is going to happen and that the post is going to be wide open, if you run it like this and the player runs it like that and the post is wide open, they score a touchdown, they could care how they don't give a damn how McDaniels delivers the message as long as it works, because, you know, Kyle Shanahan isn't exactly a ray of sunshine.
Yeah.
You know, like, so as long as it works, like the coach personality should work, and it does work. And the defense with Fangio, I mean, we've seen Ramsey in a Fangio type of system before.
We've seen Chubb in Denver when he's healthy.
Yeah, we've seen Chubb.
Tier like 2-ish at times when he's healthy.
Yeah, him and Phillips should be like a pretty good edge duo. Like I really do like what Jalen Phillips brings to the table as at least a pass rusher, not really as a tackler, which is unfortunately why he hasn't had too many sacks. But, you know, Christian Wilkins, Sealer is a really good defensive tackle duo, and I really like.
Is there a duo better? I've been thinking about that lately.
A duo better. You might say like Chris Jones and, you know,
whoever's next to him,
right?
Yeah.
Just because Chris Jones is there and he might just be more valuable than the both of them. They're both so different because Christian Wilkins doesn't really bring any element of power. He's just like the most active hustle defensive tackle.
Sealer like just shoves dudes into the quarterback, and Wilkins just is always in the right place.
So
they complement each other very well.
They are. They're very different, but I like to watch them. We talked about the corner
The Colts
duos.
have a good. The Colts have a good.
That's
tackle
a good pick.
duo. Buckner and
I might
Stewart.
take Rover Stewart, and
Buckner
I might take Buckner.
There's
and Stewart
another
over
one
him.
that.
I don't know about that.
Simmons and Tart.
Simmons and Tart
Tennessee,
is also really good.
Simmons and Tart, that's a valid one.
I think that I don't know if it's maybe. I really like Ogunjobi and Cam Hayward, but I don't know if
that's valid. I would say.
I mean, Cam Hayward.
I just feel like
a lot of that one, but
I think
Ogunjobi's underrated.
He's good.
Yeah,
he's good.
Yeah.
He was good. He was all right in Cleveland, but Cam Hayward is Cam Hayward. Like
right. He is doing a lot of carrying there, no doubt. But it's not like he has some liability next to him.
Yeah.
Who else is there?
I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
I
Hargrave and Armstead in San Francisco is pretty good these days.
That's
too.
another good one.
Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt next season. Lock in.
You hate Devontae Wyatt.
The Eagles have some legit potential with Carter and Jordan Davis, and
I
mean, it would have been better with
too.
Hargrave still there, but you know, I'm looking at this defense, and I don't see any starter who's not a net positive. Maybe I'm off base there, but like, there's just not really a hole defensively. Their ceiling.
Who are the
in
linebackers
secondary
these days?
David Long and Jerome Baker. Baker's just average. He's painfully average, and that's kind of been a problem.
Fine.
But he has a legit like top 10 linebacker alongside him.
I could see the secondary, and I think that Howard could be bad. Like Howard was. Would you say that Howard was bad last year?
Yes, he was bad.
he was pretty bad.
But he was playing with like a groin injury, but I don't know.
Okay.
That he's
He looked
kind of
pretty stiff.
on the lower side of the cornerback peak age curve, so maybe he never gets back to 2020. He
was
definitely won't get back to 2020.
He was bad at he was bad at the beginning of the year, and he was bad at the end of the year. So that must have been a hell of a groin injury. You know, like it was Bengals week 3 that he was getting cooked, and then it was the Bills. I mean, Stephon Diggs was killing him in the Bills game in the playoffs. So like, maybe there's a world where the secondary isn't as good as we think, and I think there's a world where all the units are like good and not great. Like maybe Chubb and Phillips isn't quite like what we hope, or the corner duo isn't quite what we hope. But for any of the units to just be straight up bad, I don't really see it. And they're definitely flirting with top 10 offense and defense territory. And I struggle with them.
I think there could be a lot of splash
2
plays defensively. I just think like with how unpredictable the Fangio defense is, and you've got Holland and Ramsey like rotating all over the place, I would not test the middle of the field against that defense. I think we could see a lot of those types of turnovers.
Yeah. So where do you guys have them? Where do you guys have them here?
I debate them or the Bills are number 2 or number 3. I'm going to say 2 for now, but it's still subject to change. I still have not quite figured it out.
I agree with Matt. I also have them at 3.
I have them at 3. Okay. I think everything rides on Tua staying healthy, and it's just not. And there's like the upsides there. I totally like the team, but unfortunately, it's like you've just got a guy like he's just got to stay healthy, and he just hasn't up to this point in his career. And it's like we're talking about how this team looks all across the board, and it's you get another Tua concussion, something happens to the hip, anything like that. Total outlook on the team entirely different. You know, this is it. This is the year. So
this is the year.
I hope things go well for him, but I think the Bills are a little bit of a safer bet.
That's probably true.
I don't know about that actually. I think the Bills have so many holes in their roster. I mean, we can get into that. Yeah.
Let's get into that. Nico, what do you have? Where do you have the Dolphins?
I have them at a much less confident number 1 than I did going into the show. Like, I really thought. Like, I feel the same way. I do not take Dolphins praise lightly. Like everyone in the Dolphins fan base, I've been known to be one of the more pessimistic guys, but this year,
it's not hard in the Dolphins fan base. I'll say that right now. The Dolphins fan base is quite the fan base.
Optimistic.
They are
quite optimistic.
Yeah.
Quite optimistic, yes.
But if we want to talk about the Bills, I agree with Matt. I think they're a substantially safer pick. They had a ton of injuries on defense last year, and they still went 13-3.
Yep.
Like, I think you get all these guys back. You get Vaughn back. You have Poyer fully healthy. You have Micah Hyde back. Trey White's healthy. Kyra Alam started to come along a little bit towards the end of the year. Like, the defense is going to be good, and Matt Milano is still one of the top linebackers in the league. I think the defense is still going to be good.
Milano's great.
He's so good, man.
Now it's just to find a defensive coordinator.
McDermott's calling the plays, so that's kind of a wild card.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they have like a number 1 guy on the defensive line. Maybe Vaughn bounces back. He was great last year, but he's kind of getting
healthy.
Really
Vaughn
old.
Is still,
I don't know.
Healthy Vaughn is still really, really good. You would like to see Greg Rousseau take a step.
He can. He has a lot of upside. Ed Oliver's pretty solid. That was really a good move, bringing him back.
I feel like the defense is going to be less than the sum of its parts. It's just a lot of banking on very old players. I really am just not sure if I buy into like post Achilles 35-year-old Von Miller as
the good news is you don't gotta, because we know they were good without him last year.
They were okay without him last year.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing.
The Bengals offensive line like blowing them off the ball in the playoffs, and their pressure rate just fell off a cliff when Vaughn got hurt. it's just like, they didn't really suitably replace Edmonds either in the front seven. It's like, I don't really like Milano's good, but he's the will linebacker and he's not really the one in the middle of the defense, like keeping everything under control. And that's Edmonds. And Edmonds is pretty unspectacular in my opinion. Like they got him to the point where he was pretty solid last year and like doing the right things. Whereas before it was like he was doing the wrong things. But to me, Edmonds was never like a playmaker. But now they just don't really have option there. Poyer was hit free agency, didn't really receive much interest and then came back. And I think that he is 32 and noticeably was less athletic last year.
He was Trey White was through an injury.
Trey White really disappointed me. I was really high on the bounce back agenda, and then he let me down there. But once again, as Matt says, like all these things went wrong, and
something's got to change so the Bills will be bad. Poyer, hey, the safety stunk last year. Trey White was just horrible. He's the worst player in the league. Von Miller, he was injured and he's going to come back and he won't be any good. They won 13 games last year.
But they do have to take into account, like,
Von went down undefeated in the regular season after that. Having Josh Allen matters a lot.
Yeah, that's the thing. Josh Allen. I've been pushing the Josh Allen agenda a lot this offseason. I think he's still confidently the number 2 quarterback in the NFL.
I wavered after the playoff game, but I think I'm back around to that.
That was just such an unserious supporting cast in the playoffs, though. It was a sloppy performance, but man, the way that they got mauled in the trenches on both sides, the way that Stephon Diggs, I don't know what goes on with Diggs in the playoffs. Like, I hate to start that narrative, but it is kind of weird that he just never has these big games.
Well, he cooked Howard. he did do that.
He did do that.
I don't know either. I haven't watched that game in a minute.
I
just think it's more. Like, you get a week and you get good players and you can focus on Diggs and really bracket him, and they just don't have really anyone else to punish you. And I don't think Dalton Kincaid, although I am excited about him as a movable piece.
They've just been a contender too long, so people are just like, we've got to be negative about them.
They are kind of my Cowboys, where I'm like, show me something in the playoffs.
This would never be said about the New York Jets. Who the fuck do the Jets have a wide receiver too? Why do people think Gabe Davis needs to be an all-pro? I truly do not understand it.
Is Gabe Davis worse than Alan Lazard?
Gabe Davis
they scored like 13 points in the playoffs, and Cole Beasley was their number 2 receiver.
I look at the Bills. I say, okay, quarterback, Rodgers or Allen.
Allen.
Okay, running backs, whatever. Wide receivers, is it not the Bills? I'm taking the Bills tight end, and then both of their offensive lines are really not that great. But it's all positive about the
Bills' offensive line. I think you are giving too much credit to group with the Jets, though. I mean, I really like the Osiris Torrance pick, but I just don't see a plus starter outside of Dawkins.
Great news, though. You have a tank at quarterback.
Morse is average.
But
yeah. I mean, I sound like I'm hating too much.
Dawkins is a plus starter.
I really do agree with you with the premise
good right away. Mitch is average. Is the Jets' offensive line this good? I mean, Becton doesn't even play, and Brown is like 38.
So how do we really feel about the Jets' offensive line now?
I think it's
how do we really feel?
We said we would get to it again once we got to the Bills. So
my point is that, like, I just think people are overly critical about Buffalo, and they're picking them apart to an insane degree because they have been good for so long. The expectation is like so high, whereas like the Jets, it's like they're fresh, they're new. We're looking at them through a positive light. Bills, negative. But I think I have the Jets at 1 because I think their defense is going to be awesome. But the Bills could easily be number 1. I think both those teams are going to win like 12, 13 games. I think the Bills are right back, and I don't think there's any reason to believe they won't.
Yeah.
My question is,
I think windows and the age of the team is different than the Jets. Even though Rodgers is old, the rest of the Jets are young. Whereas with the Bills, it just feels like they've been running the same thing back for years, and it hasn't worked. And what have they added? They've added some rookies.
Elam, I still have high hopes for.
I think that's exactly my point. Is that they've run this back so many times. Now it's almost like the 76ers, and that's the thing, though. Like, it's like
their prospects. All of a sudden, if they can just get all these guys they've drafted who just haven't been, they've been average, but they haven't been super inspiring. Like all these first round picks. Like if Rousseau and Elam are all of a sudden breaking out, now we have a sort of extended window here. And I think that's a fair point by Matt.
And the other thing about the Bills is I feel like these other teams in their division have gotten pretty close to them. I think even the Jets took a game off of them last year, did they not? And the Dolphins, did they beat them both times or just one?
Outplayed them, I would say, in all 3 games.
And so
maybe that's biased. The first game was a little like
the first game. We
were lucky to squeak that one out. Josh Allen missed the game-winning throw.
But they did beat them.
But I was really optimistic by how close we came down the stretch against them. And with a more serious defense, it could happen. But I get the high floor thing.
In terms of the putting them at third, to me it felt like the Jets and the Dolphins were like getting close, and they did what they needed to do to kind of make that push to get either in the Bills tier or ahead of the Bills. And the Bills didn't do anything. And the Bills are just getting older, and the Bills, their quarterback is, who knows what's going on with Allen and Diggs, and their defensive coordinator retired and they didn't replace him. And it just is a team that just doesn't feel like that. If they didn't have it in any of the other years, they don't have it this year. And maybe I am just bored of the Bills and being like, whatever, I'm sick of them just being hyped up to lose in the playoffs and not even, get to the AFC Championship these last couple of years with Allen. But I really do feel like if it didn't happen in those years, why should I be like crazy high on them now? And like, why should I say that they have done enough to stay ahead of the Jets and Dolphins when I think we all know that the Jets and Dolphins have improved pretty mightily? And I think the Bills are a good team, but again, I think they're a victim of their own division a little bit. And I just have them third because I think they got passed up, and I just don't think they've done a great job growing and adding the talent they need to add to stay on top. And Vaughn was a good pickup for them, and it worked. But then it's like,
I don't know how I feel about Vaughn.
Achilles,
like, he's such a huge X factor,
and it would be a pretty big,
yeah.
I mean, if you look at best seasons by a 35-year-old or 34-year-old edge rusher, I'm sure that it's a pretty short list, and I don't know.
Well, it's
just not an inspiring unit. I'm not inspired,
and I think a lot of it is like, well, they're only getting older. Well, no, they're bringing in guys in the draft. They have a lot of guys who could get better. They have a lot of guys, lot of guys with upside.
Who has upside?
Rousseau, Elam.
Rousseau. I mean, I like Rousseau.
That's about where I'll stop.
Kincaid.
But what upside? Like, what team doesn't have upside? Then it's like every team has more upside. I guess
now
we're
kind of going into the thing that Mac talks about.
Yeah,
it's like where we say every team got better this offseason.
I think it's like,
I don't know.
I just think it's picking them to go low because you're kind of out on them as Super Bowl contenders, and that's a fair take. But them just like randomly, like they're going to win 9 games. I don't think so.
I don't think that's happening.
I don't know if I said that.
I think they're winning 11, at least.
The Jets and the Dolphins are like, I'm more excited to see them, and I guess I'm like more in on them as Super Bowl contenders than Buffalo at this point.
Dude, you don't think Tua is all that?
I don't think Tua is all that. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is all that. Jimmy Garoppolo isn't him, and Tua is probably better than Jimmy. And Jimmy and Purdy can go to the fucking NFC Championship game every single goddamn year and beat the Packers by 50 points. It's like you don't need Allen to run this system as long as you have Waddle and Hill. And it's like, can they just be the 49ers? That's why I feel like the Bills... Like, sure. Probably.
They're like the 76ers, but you're picking them to miss the playoffs. It just doesn't make any sense.
The Bills are the 76ers. They're the ones that are
exactly. But you're picking them to be like a 40-win team. It just makes it's too extreme. And it's like everything.
Give the 76ers about a year, and people will probably project them to be about a 40-win team.
Yeah, after Embiid and after everyone retires.
Maxi franchise player.
I mean, it's. I think there's way more upside of like, okay, well, they missed Vaughn and they were still winning regular season games anyway. Playoffs or whatever. Super Bowl, fine. I'll give you that. They've got no chance, no hope. They're so stupid. They're so dumb. All their role players suck. They have one good guy. Okay, fine. But they were good without Vaughn, and Vaughn can only come back and be a plus.
Well, who did they play without? They played the Bears, the Dolphins without Tua, the Jets, and the Patriots. It's like
you have more you are more negative about Vaughn coming back and not being healthy than you are about Tua. Tua is like
because one is a young quarterback,
34, coming off an Achilles injury.
Dude, Tua could I don't see how that's.
I'm not afraid of Von Miller re-injuring himself. I'm just worried about the ceiling at this point.
I'm worried about Tua getting hurt again. But when he's healthy, he should be even better than he was last year. Probably. But with Vaughn, even if he stays healthy through the entire year, I'm worried that coming off a major injury at that age,
I'm not talking about one. I'm just talking about how much it matters to the team.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tua is younger and Vaughn. Dude, Vaughn could not be on the team entirely, sure, but I just every little thing about the Bills is now and the max negative possible thought you can have about it. If I go say Dawson,
we are a little bored.
Really good tight end, people will it gets sneered at. No. He's not a real weapon. Yeah, he is.
Well, they were missing Micah Hyde last. They were missing Micah Hyde last year. Jordan Poyer was playing through an injury. So we could be like, oh, he was bad last year. He was literally playing hurt. They did not want him to get on the plane to go to away games because they were like, you're too hurt. And he drove to a game so that he could play.
He drove to
this sounds like poverty organization.
I'm just saying, all of this.
But Miami, we just had this discussion about.
Well, I can be lower on Miami. Don't tempt me.
I feel like
all this is this is just making me more excited to say the Jets are the only team from this division making the playoffs.
That's what I'm saying. The Jets have the fewest question marks.
You can be like the guy that just talks about how, remember the AFC West last season? Apparently all 4 teams were supposed to make the playoffs.
That's right. Maybe this is a disappointing division.
You should pull that for your narrative.
I think I will. I think this is all this conversation.
The Jets are this year's Chiefs.
Because maybe it is hypocritical to be, high on Miami with their injury concerns and their, older players and Ramsey and Howard and Armstead and whatnot, and Hill even. Well, Hill's not. He's gonna be 20. So dude, he's not that old. But
Howard is maybe he can bounce back. Tre'Davious White, I hate you. It's this.
Hey, I am not gonna concede. I am very concerned.
Howard is good. I have said Howard was.
I'm very concerned about Howard
this entire episode. But could you, if let's say Howard was cut today, you would still be like, the secondary has some real hope. Because Kohu was an undrafted free agent who performed decently.
I think Miami is a real good team if Tua plays. Let's not get it twisted. I think they're right there. I think all those teams could be right up there and yada, yada, yada. And let's make it clear. I'm picking the Bills above Miami. And I have the Bills at 2. I don't have them at 1 even.
And I agree with that. I think...
But I think the idea that like they do not have 13 wins is very much in play for them. Not upside, like just very much in play, and winning the division is very much in play. And I think I'm going out on a limb saying the Jets are going to win this division because that's how I feel. I don't think it's like the Bills are still the team to go through here. And almost all the negative stuff that is said about them. I still
think they are too. I just think they're going to be gone through.
I just think all the negative stuff is like, obviously people are being like way more negative in their Bills analysis, just wildly in a way that they don't for the other teams.
And that's why I think I can confidently put them at 2. I think that they are easily going to be a playoff team. I just don't know about the ceiling. So I've got the Bills at 2 for sure. And
you got the Jets at 3.
There's going to be a boom or bust team that ends up winning it. That's how I see it. I think
you got to put somebody at 3 in this division. I'll say that.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about you. So you have the Patriots at 4, the Dolphins at an unconfident 1, the Bills at a confident 2. This is like a Fantano.
And the Jets at an unconfident 3 because I think they could win the division.
Okay.
That's my ranking.
Look, I mean, we know we're splitting hairs. All of these teams are real good. Although we've said this about like it's just really close, guys, for every division. But
it is. I think it is close.
It is close.
It's been close in different ways. Like I think the NFC
we're coming
North
off
is
a very
mid-close.
tough episode for you guys.
The NFC North is mid-close. The NFC South is mid-close. And then the AFC East and North are like
are really close.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We haven't really talked to. Let's talk about the West next, the AFC West, and just talk about how the Chiefs are going to mollywop everybody.
It's just Mahomes.
Push the Raiders 2-15 agenda.
Oh, we will be. We will be there for that.
We will be there no matter what.
Yeah,
man, I'm prepared for the Sean McVay resurging on
right.
Russell Wilson's career
in both conferences are going to be the top mollywhopping the bottom most likely.
That Mahomes MVP has never looked better.
Hey, Jalen Hurts got it this year. I got $5 on Jalen Hurts to win 60, baby.
Where his mouth is.
Yeah, man. You know, that's my mortgage at this point. But let's get into this mailbag segment. We've got a couple of questions from our Twitter. You all should probably know what the most common one was because everyone and their mom was asking it. What is the Titans' outlook with DeAndre Hopkins?
Well, if we're
they moved the needle today, I think.
I think a little bit.
Yeah.
They did because they had the worst wide receiver group in the league. I think pretty confidently you could say that because Burks is a project, although I like him as a prospect.
I like Burks a lot.
You know, Kyle Phillips is your most technically refined receiver out there. And they really needed the number one guy. And now you look at this position group and you've got Hopkins, Burks, Okonkwo, who I know you guys love. You got Kyle Phillips, Henry, Tannehill. Everything except the offensive line actually looks like above average now, in my opinion.
We need Skoronski to be a day one.
And they already have an amazing, not amazing defense, but a great defense. So you're kind of starting to see how Mike Vrabel is going to bear crawl this team to like 8 or 9 wins with a lot more certainty than before.
Yeah, I agree. I like the Titans before this move. As listeners of this podcast know, I bravely and boldly said they'd be better than the Colts, BLAIDEN's Colts next season. And
I think
now I'm even more confident in that because I like Burks. And I think when he was healthy last year, I saw him moss Jair Alexander. I saw him catch a pass.
That was the game.
And that was I saw him catch a pass while he was unconscious. And
him and Chris Olave were doing that every week, it felt like.
Olave was doing a bit too much of that as well. But I think they're the type of offense that doesn't quite need a lot of super wide receiver talent, at least in the past. And that's why they felt okay about getting rid of AJ Brown, I think, is like they kind of lean on Henry. And I think this year it's more important that they have good wide receivers because Henry has hit age 29, and that has been a very bad age for running backs basically since Adrian Peterson was 29. Yeah, like there's really very, very few examples of 29-year-old good running backs. And I don't think it's shocking to me that that's the age window that they tried to shop Derrick Henry in, and no one would trade for him. So I think they're going to need to start, and they drafted Tyjae Spears. So I think it's going to be
doesn't have an ACL.
Yes,
that is a very weird storyline.
Literally doesn't have one.
I think that's the thing. Is like that's why he fell in the draft is because
it's just not well. Then he can't tear it.
What do you mean he doesn't?
It's not just not
maybe
there.
I'm losing my mind here, but there is some really weird Tyjae Spears injury.
Not having an ACL is like
knee injuries, so I believe you.
That's really important because like the ACL protects the other ligaments.
Reported that he has no ACL, and then Tyjae dismissed the concerns and said nothing wrong with me. I'm healthy. So that is a very weird.
That is.
I mean, it's not a big aspect of the Titans offense anyway, but I found that interesting.
If you like, the ACL protects the other ligaments in the knee, like
they probably have something better in there. They've probably got some weird rubber.
It's like
I don't know.
Anyway, I do think that there's going to be less of a diet of Derrick Henry than we've seen in years past. I think that's almost a certainty. So you need better wide receivers. If you want to give the keys to Levis, you got to give him a chance. I honestly wish the Texans.
I don't think Levis starts.
I don't think he does either. But like in a world where he does or Tannehill goes down. Like you want your quarterbacks to have a fighting chance. And I think that's a problem that we've seen. I mean, with Tua before he got Waddle and Tyreek Hill, I think it's a problem we've seen with a couple different quarterbacks. Josh Allen, when he got to the league, he had no receivers. And then once you get a receiver, then it's all good. But, it would be better to just have them sooner. So if you've got a guy like Levis in the wings, it's good to have like competent pieces around him. And this is a competent piece. I think they're pretty clearly a better roster than the Texans and the Colts. So they might as well go for like something in the playoffs. They're not going to be contending for the number 1 overall pick in my eyes and never were. So yeah, I like the deal. I did my contract analysis a couple days ago of what Hopkins was going to get, and I came away with 2 years, $24 million guaranteed.
Oh man, and next Brad Spielberger here.
Yeah, and it was 2 years, 26. So like, I don't think it was an overpay. I think if Odell Beckham is going to be making 1 year, $15 million, like this was always going to be the price for Hopkins. So you got to spend money on something. They're probably not going to have a super expensive quarterback for a while here. They're not going to be giving out any of those mega deals. So, I think it's a perfectly fine signing. I think that they can club people over the head. They've got a bunch of contested catch artists. I worry about, who's going to be the separator, but maybe Treylon Burks will develop as a route runner, and Phillips underneath is a guy who could maybe
He's kind of like your Cole Beasley.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it'll be good. I think at least versus zone, you've still like DeAndre Hopkins. He's still, to me, a pretty good route runner. I think that he still has speed and fluidity in and out of breaks. He's still obviously got the hands. He may have had catch of the year last year versus the Chargers.
Oh my gosh. He had a million insane catches that didn't count.
Yeah. So I like him. I think, as he gets older, is he going to be quite the separator that he once was? Maybe not. Maybe if is this a team in Tennessee that you're really afraid to go up and play cover one against? Still, probably not. But I mean, before they probably would have gotten man coverage every single play with nothing to worry about. And now, there's someone there who's beaten plenty of corners before.
I don't think it really moves the needle a ton for me.
It doesn't really, but I think it's a good signing.
But
because,
it gives them a higher ceiling.
Like their offense sucks because their offensive line sucks. Then Tannehill.
But they got a new offensive line coach, Matt. Have you considered?
I'm sorry.
Have you heard of the whisper?
I mean, Hopkins is good, but he hasn't played a full season in a couple of years. I don't know if he's like tier 1, like really going to change their life.
Oh, no.
I don't feel like
But I think he's
anybody
top 15
on this offense is in their prime right now.
Ooh, I don't know about top 15. He's probably like
I think
a good piece at this point.
Like, it's
Really?
I don't know.
I thought he was very good when he played last year, and like
he was good.
He
was
came
good.
back from the suspension. And he
it's
immediately
not like he was hurt.
was like going 10 for 120 every week. So
yes, he was
it's
very
hard
productive.
to say that he's not at least a tier 2 receiver still. No, tier 3. You know, divvy
he's
it up.
a good
You can
piece.
Say, like, there's
He's a good
Waddle,
ad.
Smitty, McLaurin
it's a
type
cool
of tier
ad, and they're
receiver.
sort of competing for like the AFC South and whatnot. But like overall, like I don't know.
Oh
dude.
no! Like
I think their offense is
they're
still
no
like,
threat in the playoffs or anything.
they're still pretty much the same team to me, with maybe a little bit more threat to Jacksonville, but I don't know.
They've got a really easy schedule though, and I think they have a window to compete for the playoffs, and I think this does
similar to the
solidify. This does bring stability and solidify them as a potentially competent offense, which you need to get to that spot.
Mm-hmm.
Because before they were leaning on maybe the worst group of wide receivers and a running back who like there's the check engine light is on and there's a million alarm bells going off, as good of a season as he had last year. It's the mileage is really racking up. Yeah. And if that were to follow through, leaning on this receiving core would have been probably quite bad. I do think leaning on this receiving core now, at least if you're in like, if there's no injuries, is an okay thing to do. And like, you've got now someone who is capable of, like you said, Nico, he had 80 yards a game. So it's a lot better than Westbrook Akine or whoever they had out there before. He's not giving it. He's not giving.
He might still see snaps. So,
yeah, he might. It's just I feel a lot better about him as your number like 4 than your number 2. You know,
right? We have one more question from Jay Cubit on Twitter. It says, "What are your expectations for Jameson Williams when he comes back?" We got the one splash play. But outside of that, we don't really have much of a proof of concept of what he really can be for this Detroit offense.
They tried to get him some looks, and
go ahead.
Not a ton came of it. I think he gets pushed around a little bit. I think he's pretty light. It just seemed like he wasn't creating a ton of separation, or he wasn't quite clicking when he was with the Lions. Of course, there's a lot of reasons for that. You know, he's coming off an injury, and now he's going to be like coming out of a suspension. So it's like a lot of different stuff. But and it's kind of hard to judge how he actually is at this level when there's so many other like outside factors to take into account. But I honestly expect it to be a little bit slower. It's totally possible that he comes in. It's like he's finally got it. He's 100% cool off the injury, and he's really, really cooking. But he didn't when he came in last year, and he'll be coming off a suspension in the middle of the year, and he's still young and all that. So I think it'll be a process.
I don't think he'll be a high volume guy, just because I don't think.
Right.
I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be that. I think that he's not going to be someone that Goff is going to be hitting on too many like underneath passes. I do think that you want him taking the top off the defense and widening everything out, which is probably going to mean not like crazy volume, but I think his yards per target should be really good. I mean, he is noticeably like crazy fast when you see him running around out there. Like he's different than most even speedy deep threats. Like it's getting up there into that like Waddle Hill type of range of speed. I really do think. But yeah, it's a long way to go, and he hasn't played much football. And I think that good deep threat should be your expectations for him. Like,
yeah,
better than John Ross, you know.
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely think you can expect that, but
one can dream.
Yeah,
I'm expecting just useful deep threat, like maybe Christian Watson with maybe out not all the touchdowns, because that was kind of a crazy pace. Yeah. But you do want him. I mean, that's the other speedster in the division. Like, you kind of want him to be about as good as Watson at least was last year.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a lot like Rashid Shaheed last year. That sort of impact where, like you said, his yards per target, like on throws 20 yards down the field, he's going to lead the league. And it is going to be a process, because I think they really like had him in bubble wrap last season. They thought their year was over when they were like 4-7. So why would they roll out all their special plays for him? And he didn't play many snaps. So yeah, I think if he comes back, he could, down the stretch of the season, if they really feel like they're in a good spot, they might unleash him. But I'll temper myself and say he goes for like 500 yards next year.
Yeah, I think
that's
it's going to take
realistic. Missing 6 games.
Yeah.
Yeah, that gives him 511 games. That's 55 yards a game or something like that. I don't know.
That might be a little ambitious.
It's more like 45, I think.
Yeah.
45.
I think it's fair. I think it's fair
too. I think it's something like that. I think it'll take him a bit to work to like gain the trust of this coaching staff. I think that I don't think anything is going to be handed to him by Dan Campbell, and it didn't happen last year. Like, he was hurt and he didn't really get a ton of opportunities, and now he's kind of let the team down with the gambling suspension. So I think once he comes back, there'll be guys who I think the Lions offense will be okay without him, and they might kind of work him in a little bit. But I think when he is targeted, he's going to make some, because he had a play against the Packers that got called back. That was like this huge touchdown. And I think that he's going to make splash plays, and like maybe by the end of the year, start putting forward some decent performances. But I think as a whole next year, the numbers aren't going to be off the charts or anything like that. But yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that pretty much wraps things up for us. Thank you, Nico, for joining us. Thank you all for tuning in. It's been an absolute pleasure. Make sure you all wish Nico a big happy birthday. I know it's a couple of days late if you haven't already.
Boy.
He's finally an adult. So this is very
So you
exciting.
can be mean to him now.
Yes, you
Yeah.
can.
You can't, the people can't just say, he's just a kid.
He's literally not
Chill
a
out on
minor.
him.
Are you looking at going to college at all, or no? Are you gonna keep doing the
next
content
year
stuff?
I'm about to be a senior in high school, so yeah.
Okay. Wow. So you're like,
Yeah. I'm an older senior.
okay. Wow. Okay. That makes sense. Sick. Well, best of luck to you. And
Thank you.
thank you all for tuning in. It's been an absolute blast. And as always, we will catch you on the flippity flop.